Hey everybody, today I'm talking about the Oracle of Delphi. Now the Oracle of Delphi is a board game for 2 to 4 players, takes about 90 minutes to play. The game is by a very prolific Eurogame designer, Stefan Feld, who happens to be one of my favourite designers ever. This one maybe hasn't quite reached the popularity of some of his other games, but it shares some pretty distinct DNA with one of his probably most famous games and most kind of widely kind of acclaimed games, The Castles of Burgundy, because the dice system it used is shared with this game. However, the game is very, very different in that in terms of its feel and its kind of dynamics and the way it plays out, and the end game objective is completely different as well, because this one is a race game. It's set in ancient Greece, and the theme is that you've been set on all these kind of 12 legendary tasks by Zeus, and the first person to complete them and get back to Zeus will be the winner. So it does have that race feel to it. It's not your typical point salad game which you get from Feld. So these objectives are basically 4 different types. One of those types is to erect these different statues on different points on the board. One is to raise shrines, one is to make offerings, and one is to slay monsters. And there's 3 of each of those tasks, making 12 in total. The board itself is modular, so you've got all these different kind of hexes, I believe, and they fit into each other in very different ways, which can give you loads of variability in its setup. So each game you play is going to have a very different look and kind of different logistics about how you're going to get around the map. So, as I said, the game does share some pretty distinct DNA with the Castles of Burgundy. So if you're familiar with that, you're going to be using dice to perform different actions and stuff. But if you're not familiar with it, I'll do my best to explain. So essentially, you're going to have 3 dice on your turn, and you're going to roll them. And each of those dice faces are assigned a different colour or symbol, depending on how you want to look at it. And you're going to use those dice faces as actions to do on your turn, and you can use those actions to either travel around the map, and you can go up to 3 spaces as kind of default, as long as you end in a space ending with that corresponding colour. So you're going to use the dice to travel around, you're going to use those dice to pick up statues, and then you're going to carry them to different points on the board and you're going to deposit them. You're going to try and locate these different tiles and place your shrines on them. You're going to pick up different coloured cubes and put them on their relative temples. And basically the statues and the kind of offerings are scattered around the map in different ways, meaning that each player is kind of fighting for the same places. Otherwise, if someone gets there first, you may be diverted and have to go somewhere else. So you can really kind of look at the map and plan on how you're going to most efficiently complete all these tasks as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But the cool thing about this game is the kind of level of engine building and combos and kind of the ways you can use these dice as effectively as possible. It's very intriguing and very kind of, there's a kind of a dynamism to it where you can use those dice very cleverly because there are so many things you can use them for. You also have these god abilities that you can use, which can help you tremendously, and you can use those dice faces in order to charge those gods' powers up, and as they go up and up these levels and get to the top, you get to activate their ability, and those abilities are extremely powerful, such as teleporting anywhere on the map. You can use them to use all your dice as wilds. You can fight monsters with them, meaning you don't have to take the kind of normal route of fighting monsters, which is a bit more risky and can kind of slow you down, and all kind of stuff like that. You also have to kind of manage or deal with these wounds that you'll be taking on your boat, because at the end of every round, someone will roll a Titan dice, and that will effectively wound you and give you these kind of different coloured wounds. And there's wounds of all the different colours of the dice faces, so there's 6 different colours. And if you ever take 3 wounds of the same colour, then you will miss your whole turn. Alternatively, if you ever take 6 of any colour, then you'll also miss your own turn as well. So you've got to really carefully manage about how you're going to deal with those wounds. And there are ways that you can kind of bolster up your defences on your boat, which not only helps you deal with those wounds, but will also help you slay the monsters when it comes to it, which I'll explain in a second. And you can also use those dice to take these kind of favour tokens, which are very useful, because you can use them to manipulate the die rolls and moving them around this kind of rondelle to get the different actions that you want. You can use them to charge up to different god powers. And another cool thing as well is that when other players take their turn and roll their dice, if you have a god on your track that matches their color of their dice rolls, you can move one up as well. So you are constantly kind of charging up your god powers even when it's not your turn, which is really cool touch and can help tremendously. So as I said, the game is a race game, and that kind of race feel does shine through really strongly. There is a tension there where you want to beat people to certain spots, try and make sure you get the most effective route to get back as quickly as possible. You can take kind of oracle cards, which are these kind of wild or these kind of another dice you can have it in kind of form of a card. And you can kind of cash them in when you like as a kind of bonus action, which is, again, can be tremendously useful. And you'll find at the end of the game that with all the kind of god powers you're getting and the oracle dice and stuff, you can end up completing several different tasks on your turn on the same turn, which is very rewarding, and it feels like you're really building up towards something, which is really nice. Alternatively, there are so many other things you can do, because when you complete these different quests, you're going to take the tile and discard it to show your opponent how well you're doing, but you're also going to get a reward as well. And those rewards are very powerful and extremely useful in helping you be more efficient and quicker about completing the other tasks. So, for example, when you complete some objectives, you get to take these kind of cards, which either let you maybe travel around faster, so you can move up to, say, 6 spaces instead of 3, as long as you use a certain dice space. You can use dice as wilds, or you can even bolster your defenses more, meaning that it'll completely eradicate wounds of a certain color. So there's loads of different kind of routes you can go down in order to make your boat different than other players. Also, there are these power cards that you can take, which will either give you ongoing benefits or they can give you kind of one-off benefits, and those are extremely powerful as well, which is useful because I hate when games give you power cards or give you unique abilities which don't feel like they're extremely powerful and useful. They're kind of very subtle advantages you can get. But these ones, when you get a power card, you're like, wow, that is useful. For example, like you can automatically take a certain offering or a certain statue onto your boat instantly, or you can jump over holes on the board, or you can maybe increase your wound limit. So you only have to worry until you get 8 wounds instead of the 6, which is, again, very powerful, and it can give you a distinct advantage over other players. So yeah, I really like the level of engine building that goes into this one, not only through the cards, but through the power cards, through the oracle cards, through the favor tokens, which are useful, again, to manipulate your dice, through the god powers. And as you can imagine, on top of your 3 basic actions, you can use all those different elements to your advantage in order to achieve a lot in a short amount of time. And that combined in a race game is just so interesting, because when you're watching your opponent just completely nail all their different tasks and use all those god's abilities, you think, wow, I need to really come back at them, and they're probably thinking the same about you. So that kind of the dice mechanism with all those additional abilities in the engine building, with the race element as well, it's just such a cool combination of mechanisms and theme, and I just really do like it, and it just fits so well. The decisions of the game are great because, again, you've got a combo about how you're going to most effectively use those dice. Are you going to use your favor tokens to manipulate them? Have you got enough favor tokens to tackle the monsters? Because when you fight monsters, you basically are rolling a d10, and you have to, on a default level, you have to roll at least a 9. But for every favor token you spend, you're going to have to roll 1 less, which again is a nice kind of mitigation tool you've got, because if you stack up on these favor tokens, then you're going to pretty much be sure to kill one of those monsters with relative ease. And also, you can also use that Ares God token just to slay a monster outright, which again can be extremely useful and help you get things done a lot quicker with a lot less risk of hurting yourself and slowing yourself down. Balance of the game is excellent. I mean, you are obviously subject somewhat to the dice rolls, but again, if you mitigate by taking more favor tokens, you can manipulate your board a bit better. And you're going to have to maybe adjust on the fly sometimes in order to not waste your turn and stuff like that. And even if you are strapped for maybe what you instantly need right now, you can always cash those dice in order to get more favor tokens. Or you can also just charge up your god powers, which is always useful because they're always going to be useful when you need them. Mechanisms wise, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, that use of that dice mechanism, like it's just very similar to Castles Burgundy, but again, it feels like a very different game. I think it just works excellently, and the way everything fits together is just great. Time investment, although this game takes an hour and a half, maybe a tiny bit longer if in a more kind of higher player count, but I think it feels more than appropriate. It feels like it's ticking along at a fast pace, which is great. You know, you don't want a race game that feels like it's slow, but this one doesn't. It feels like it's quick, even though it's kind of your typical Eurogame length, which is quite an interesting feel to it. So you've got that meaty game, but it still feels fast and interesting. Uptime as well is excellent because you can plan your turns pretty efficiently. Obviously, some people can come and snatch things that you were planning on getting, but generally it's not a big issue. You know, you're always interested in what other people are rolling because you're charging up your god powers at the same time, which I think is a great touch to keep players engaged. And yeah, you can always just look at the board and think about what route you're going to go to get all those objectives done. Replayability wise as well, I think it's fantastic because of the modular boards. You can really create some really interesting maps to make them more difficult or easier for yourselves. You know, sometimes you might have to go all the way to the end of the world basically to complete an objective, but sometimes it might all be quite in a close kind of proximity. So yeah, the variability is excellent. You've got different kind of starting bonuses as well, which again are very useful. So you've got more kind of unique player powers, such as maybe when you're using those favored tokens, you can manipulate your dice or manipulate the die faces either clockwise or anti-clockwise, which normally you can only go clockwise, or you can default start moving 4 instead of 3, and stuff like that. So that's extremely useful and cool that you can get different powers each time you play. Replayability wise, again, really good. Interaction, that race tension is really there. I think it's just a cool kind of feeling as you're just watching each player rush around the board, trying to get places before other people do. Don't get me wrong, it's not an extremely, interactive game in terms of your dealings with other players, but there's just enough there, and again, the race tension is there, which is what you want. Aesthetically, initially I was a bit, meh on this one in terms of the way it looks, but the more I play it and the more I look at it, I do actually really like the way it looks because the symbology is pretty clear. I mean, I'm colorblind and I've got no issues with it at all. I just like the wooden buildings and the wooden statues and stuff like that, and it just looks like there's a lot going on. Even though if the resources and the stuff that they're using are pretty basic, but I think it works well for the game. And the player boards and stuff are quite nice. Aesthetically, the artwork is pretty basic, but again, it has that kind of classic Euro style feel, and it's definitely not a detriment to the game. It's not the best artwork in the world, but it's certainly not the worst. And the theme, I think for a Stefan Feld game, I think the theme in this one is excellent. I love the idea of being set on these different missions, erecting those statues, filling up your boat with these big offerings, and you've only got a certain capacity in your boat, which is quite thematic. Traveling it around the map and depositing it somewhere else. All the god powers are quite thematic. For example, Ares lets you fight things, or Poseidon lets you kind of travel on the sea anywhere you want. You've got gods that let you kind of fight off wounds. You've got gods that let you use wild dice. You've got there's loads going on in terms of the god powers, and they're all very thematic. And it just fits together in a very nice package and stuff like that. And the setup and teardown time it's okay. I mean, there's quite a lot of fitted different details you need to scatter around the map and stuff, but because it's a slightly longer game, it's more than warranted. And you need that kind of that modularity and that variability in order to keep the game interesting. So the setup is proportionate, I would say. So yeah, overall, I'm absolutely fascinated with this game. I think it is fantastic. I'm a huge Stefan Feld fan anyway, and I've enjoyed every single one of his games that I've played. This one is very comfortably my second favourite one ever, only behind Trajan, which happens to be one of my favourite games ever. But this one is comfortably in my top probably 15 games of all time. That's how much I liked it. I'm confident to say that I like this one more than the Castles of Burgundy, which again is a game I really enjoy. So no detriment to that one. It's more of a claim to this one, because I think that dice rolling mechanism all the different colours and all the ways that you can use them to pick up stuff, to deposit stuff, to fight monsters, to travel, to charge up your powers, to fight off wounds. There's loads going on, and you've got to most efficiently work out how you're going to use all those different colours. The god powers are dynamic. You feel powerful in this game. You feel like you're just achieving a lot with very little, and that kind of the cadence of the game is really there. The tension of the race is there. People are generally I think more often than not, I find people aren't too keen on pick up and deliver games, and that's what really this game is. But this one, it works so well on, and I just absolutely love it, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I don't know how this game isn't, regarded as probably his finest of works. I mean, I'm sure everybody who plays it does enjoy it, but you don't hear it being talked about as much as you do with your Trajans and your Burgundies. But yeah, this one is easily his elite level games, and I couldn't recommend it enough if you like your Felds. If you like your race games, this is one to check out. I couldn't say enough good things about this one. I love it. It gets an amazing rating from me, and again, it goes up amongst my highest tiered games that I've played. So yeah, that's how much I think about the Oracle of Delphi. Go check it out. You'll definitely enjoy it. So that concludes my review of the Oracle of Delphi. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.